Good afternoon, everyone. I guess your brains are already bursting with so much information after another brilliant conference, but I am sure you will find room for another very interesting talk by Sarah Ezekiel. We're really pleased to welcome Sarah back to CM. Some of you might remember her keynote address in 2008, when we were at the University of Leicester, entitled Travels with My Laptop. Sarah was the very deserving winner of the Alan Martin Award last year. Sarah is here this afternoon to tell us about her journey with motor neurone disease, technology and art. This is a story I think we will all find fascinating. If you have any questions for Sarah, can you please hold them over for the end?
Hello everyone. I'm going to talk about my experiences of living with motor neurone disease, which has, surprisingly, made me the artist I always dreamed of being. Diagnosed in April 2000, aged 34, my symptoms were slurred speech and weakness in my limbs. The official prognosis is 2 to 5 years, but unfortunately a third of people with MND die within 12 months and half within 2 years. Being pregnant with my son, Eric, and a full-time mum to my daughter Aviva, who was 3 years old, I thought that my symptoms were pregnancy-related. Mentioning them at an antenatal appointment, it was surprising when the doctor referred me to a neurologist. I waited 2 months for an appointment and the neurologist immediately knew what was wrong. However, the diagnosis wasn't confirmed until after the tests to eliminate everything else because there are no specific tests for motor neurone disease. My husband, now ex-husband, became fed up of waiting, so I received my diagnosis alone. We had been together for 10 years and were fairly happy and enjoying life. My diagnosis was like a thunderbolt and changed our lives forever. I was absolutely terrified and in total shock. Not knowing anything about the disease, the thought of dying and leaving my children was unbearable. The feeling of isolation was awful because I didn't know anyone with MND and talking about it was embarrassing. I was also in total denial, hoping that my symptoms would disappear after my baby was born. My family took me to 2 specialist MND neurologists for second opinions. My diagnosis was confirmed both times, but fortunately, I have defied the odds and my children are now 21 and 18. After Eric was born, my progression was rapid and I became chronically depressed. My marriage started to break down under the strain and crying every day became the norm. Our children were too young to understand what was going on, but my daughter was devastated when my husband moved out in 2003. I couldn't care for Eric shortly after he was born because my arms were too weak. I did drop him once, but luckily he seems to be unharmed. My local authority kindly provided carers, but it was very difficult for me to watch strangers caring for my children. Eric never had the love and comfort that only a mother can give. Nevertheless, I'm grateful for the support which enabled me to live at home with my children. My situation felt hopeless and I never imagined that things could turn around, but they did. I believe that with adequate care and the right equipment, MND and disability can be managed well. Attending the Marie Curie Hospice in Hampstead in 2001 was the best thing that happened. It's like my second home and I still attend every week. The staff helped me deal with my depression and move forward to enjoy life again. I honestly believe that I wouldn't be alive without the support from my hospice. My GP seemed more frightened of MND than me. Before, I was pushed from pillar to post for various appointments, which was exhausting. Now everything is taken care of by my hospice and my local multidisciplinary team. My speech rapidly declined and communication was very difficult. Finding assistive technology was problematic. Unable to use my computer to research available equipment, and having absolutely no knowledge about disability, I was totally lost. My local assistive computer center gave me an on-screen keyboard and a switch that I had to strap to my knee with Velcro. The switch kept slipping and frustration made me give up. I was entirely cut off from everything and spent every day with carers who couldn't understand me very well, and my young baby, just watching television. Losing my speech was like losing my identity and personality. I was a chatterbox with a dark sense of humor, but that became invisible. Some people spoke to me like I couldn't understand them, or speak very slowly or shout. It's been the worst part of MND for me. My situation improved in 2005, when my MND Association visitor introduced me to a rep from an assistive technology company. Shortly afterwards, I was back online, using Ezekiel software on a laptop with a chin switch. I was able to email, surf the net, read and communicate again. Starting to write my story was very cathartic, and I actively used the internet to raise awareness of my condition. I also created my own website, started to organize my care and do as much as possible to live a normal life. Joining the Patients Like Me forum and discussing my condition with other people made me an enlightened patient, which is vital when you have a terminal illness. My hospice doctor let me email him whenever I was anxious, which was a great comfort. Writing a blog helped me to express my feelings about my condition. This compensated for painting, but wasn't what I really wanted. In 2010, using my switch caused me severe neck pain and I had to find another way to operate my laptop, because life without computer access would be impossible. I did some research on MND forums and found that most people in America and Europe were using Tobii Dynavox eyegaze computers. Unfortunately, there was no government funding here in the UK for technology at that time, and I couldn't get funding. Thankfully, after much campaigning, technology is now funded by the NHS. I have the latest eyegaze equipment at home and also on the computer I'm using to speak to you now. The MND Association bought me my first eyegaze computer. An infrared bar tracks my eye movements and I'm able to do everything online. Eyegaze is relatively quick compared to switch input and gives me more energy too. I'm also able to control my TV, curtains and open my front door with environmental controls. When my kids leave the room with something blaring on TV, I can change channel. It's wonderful to have some control back, after years of dependence. In April 2012, I accepted the voluntary post of secretary for my local North West London MND branch. Winning the third Sector Volunteer of the Year award in 2016 for my work for the MND Association was fantastic. Hopefully, I've encouraged other people to volunteer for charities as a result. In April of this year, I was invited to be a patron of the charity Lifelites. They provide different technologies to children's hospices and I'm really delighted to be involved with Lifelites, who do incredible work. Appearing in Sarah's story, the first MND Association broadcast advert in 2010 caused some controversy for being too shocking and was banned on television. It certainly represented my diagnosis of MND and is a powerful film, which I'm proud of. I've appeared in a few MND Association awareness campaigns since, and they are a wonderful way of reaching the general public. As I've been fortunate to have survived for so long, it's important for me to raise awareness of MND for the people who can't. Hopefully, more awareness will lead to a treatment or cure. I couldn't have done any of this work without assistive technology and I'm really grateful for it. In March 2012 I discovered that eyegaze technology can be used to draw and paint. Enthusiastic to try, I downloaded Revelation Natural Art software. Having studied art and history of art for a level and starting an art foundation course, I had always wanted to be a fine artist. Unfortunately, Earning a living was a necessity, and the college suggested I become a teacher. As school wasn't particularly enjoyable, the thought of going back as a teacher didn't appeal. I dropped out of college and worked in a shop before doing a secretarial course, which led to a career as a personal assistant in publishing. Travel, marriage, babies and MND followed next, and my dreams of being an artist ended, or so I thought. Once starting eye-gaze painting, I couldn't stop. I was very prolific in the first year and just wanted to create constantly. I use Revelation Natural Art and Art-Rage software but select tools and colors with my eyes. The process is long and painstaking, and I've become more exacting. If something isn't right, I have to delete it and start again. My surroundings suddenly became more colorful, and I feel as if I have a new lease of life. People often ask me how long it takes to complete a painting. They all vary. I've done some in one day and others have taken weeks or months. From a very young age, I remember drawing to express myself. I believe that all children should be entitled to the same expression, and I'm often asked if I can recommend art software for children. After some research, I found out that the following software is suitable for children. JacksonPollock.org, which only works on the Firefox browser. TwoPaint.org is free to download and an award-winning drawing program for children aged 3 to 12. Revelation Natural Art has a simple interface for beginners, and Art-Rage can be used with supervision from a parent or carer. Creativity is as important as communication, in my opinion, and I'm pleased that I've encouraged adults and children to draw and paint after they've seen my work. After posting my work on Facebook and Twitter, people asked if they could buy it. I opened the not-for-profit eyegaze artists website and sold prints of my work. Because of my experiences, I decided to purchase eyegaze technology to loan out to people who needed it, with the proceeds from my sales. As funding is available now, I donate a percentage to the MND Association. I've exhibited all over the UK and at the Qatar Art Centre in Qatar. I still need to perfect my technique, and I'm never completely content with my work. The creative road is long, and I still can't believe that I can paint with my eyes. In conclusion, I feel that you may think that I've been blowing my own trumpet for the last 20 minutes. The bigger picture is that although terminal illness and severe disability can seem hopeless, the human spirit is incredible and people adapt. Many people with MND and disabilities are contributing to society in wonderful ways. Before MND, I was scared of disability and didn't understand it. Now I've met many amazing children and adults with disabilities and can't see the difference between either. When I was diagnosed, my mum kept saying, "Where there is life, there is hope," and I thought, what rubbish. Mums are always right. I don't know if there's time for me to take some questions, but it will take me time to answer. I'm happy for you to email me and have some business cards that you can take. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Some of you may have seen some of Sarah's lovely prints that she donated us to sell to you, and we've got 1 or 2 left, but most of them have gone, and thank you for that. Sarah said she's happy to take some questions, and we're looking for some hands now.
James says he's loved to hear the story of how far you've come, and it's a really lovely note to go home on after a fantastic conference, and thank you.
Does anybody else have questions? Otherwise,
Thanks.
Oh, there's one over there. Sarah's very speedy at replying to emails. She's all in organising this. She and I have had a long trail of emails, and she's always speedy. And I know that she'll reply to any questions that are sent. Ewan, who is standing there, wave, has got Sarah's business card. So anybody who would like to take a card, get one from Ewan when you're leaving.
She's asking, is there other things to use other than eyegaze to draw, other apps?
I couldn't page with anything but eyegaze.
No, Sajin wants to draw, so she's saying, is there anything other than eyegaze? Because Sajin can't use eyegaze.
Okay, so maybe this is a question for the audience. Sarah Jane can't use eyegaze. Does anybody have other ideas of things she could use? Jemima, have you got any thoughts on what Sarah Jane might be able to use? Because Jemima is also a beautiful artist.
Jemima works hand over hand and directs PAs a lot. But we would also be really interested to hear if anybody knows of anything that would work for a Switch user, because she's been quite keen to try drawing software, but hasn't managed to get anything working with the Switch.
Thanks, Janet and Jemima. Tom, there's somebody in the very back row above the thing. So we'll take the next answer from somebody in the front row to keep Tom getting up and down the stairs.
I use Tux Paint with several of my users. You can use it with your fingers on touchscreen. You can also use eyegaze, so it can be a mixture. And I believe that it might be possible to use it with a Switch through Grid 3, if it's the grid set up correctly.
Thank you.
Because I've paired together Tux Paint and Grid 3 grids.
Thank you. Sarah Jane, that's Tux, T-U-X, Tux Paint. Oh, yeah, that's exactly it. This is what we want, that Tom has to come down to the front now.
Sorry, just thinking about drawing. If you can control a mouse, then potentially there's graphics programs which use vectors to draw, so you can click on the mouse, then click on the next one and draw your lines using vectors rather than putting paint on, if that makes sense. It's a long time ago since I used them, so it's probably out of date, but Illustrator used to be one that I used, but that's a long, long time ago, so vector.
Brilliant.
I like drawing myself, and I use an iPad app. I just use my finger or a stylus, so I don't know whether that potentially, if you use a Switch with an iPad, it might be. I can't remember the app, but there's quite a lot of free ones. If you go on the Apple, I think it's called the Apple Store, isn't it? Is it called App Store? Yeah, there's lots of free ones, so I use one of the free ones.
Brilliant. Emma? Sorry, do you want to sit at the microphone so they can hear?
Sorry. Gemma wanted to add to what Gemma just said, that any program that you could access with a mouse, you could use then therefore a joystick mouse. It might be easier for certain people to access as well. Okay.
Sarah Jane, is that giving you lots of ideas? So I know you asked the question of Sarah, but as long as we got you some answers. Does anybody else have a question for Sarah, or are you answering Sarah Jane?
Well, two things. Firstly, with regard to using mouse control for a drawing program, the thing that Jemima found when she's experimenting a bit is that it was the drag and drop that she couldn't get to work with the drawing programs, that's using Grid 3 mouse control. So if anybody wants to come back to us at any point with anything on that, that would be really appreciated. However, what I wanted to say to Sarah is that I find the painting, I find your artwork extremely emotionally expressive. And I was wondering whether, obviously you're extremely articulate with your AAC, but I was wondering whether the way that you developed your art at a time when words had perhaps become very difficult for you, and you'd had a period where you'd had a lot of difficulty with words before you had good AAC, whether that was somehow something that kind of contributed to the way the expressivity of your painting developed.
I think I was really fine with eye gaze and just happy to create again.
Yes, hello Sarah. Just to say thank you very much for your presentation. It's been a real privilege having followed your work over some time. But it's an art-related question, and I just wondered where you got your inspiration for your art. I can see nature featuring widely, but I just wondered, so in some ways related to the previous question, but where you get your inspiration for your artwork.
Other artists, life events, and I love nature.
This is more of an add-to for switch access for paint. If you use a Mac, there's in the accessibility options you have the blue bars, if anyone's seen them, where you can locate part of a point on the screen, and then you can choose whether to click and drag or just click. Now, I've used it with a student before for Logic Pro, which is a music software, but I'm pretty sure it would do exactly the same thing for a paint type software. So it might be something for everybody to try if they want to.